Well, I guess it's good evening, Tom, and good evening, Bob. We're a little bit later today than normal, but
We are. We are.
that's life. That's life.
Because we're having such a good time.
Yeah.
All is
I
well.
don't know what we're doing, but we're having a good time.
We are having a good time. Well, we did
Hmm.
a long pre-production, you know. It's probably one of the longest ones we've ever done.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And again, we forgot to have a scribe struck in, so all of our good ideas were not recorded. We have no idea what we're doing. Again.
Well, that's not unusual for us.
No, that's true. Yeah. The
So,
people that supposedly have better minds and get paid a lot more than we do are supposed to be in charge. So,
well, we're millionaires in our own minds.
yes. And that and 550 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks.
Not here. Not here. But anyway, it's the 13th of August,
Yes.
and it's a Wednesday. We're kind of early in the week. Usually we do this on a Friday or on a weekend.
Yeah.
But
Part and
because,
parcel my fault. I'll take full
well,
responsibility for that.
I understand. You are exonerated. You're allowed to go fishing.
Yes. Even if it is a remote place.
Yes, yes. In a hidden location, deep beneath a bunker somewhere.
Yes. Not that we're paranoid.
No, not at all.
I just have to remember to take the manual, which tells me which way to wear the tinfoil hat. Uh,
Don't make sure you take your tinfoil hat because
yeah.
it's very important, especially there's a meteor shower apparently.
Yeah, well, the Proceedings, whatever it is, supposed to be just massive. And the place that we'll be going will be free of light pollution. So,
Yeah,
uh,
sounds like a really neat place.
yeah, well, look
And
forward.
and apparently you'll be allowed to walk in the forest, but don't self-combust, okay? We want you back here next
Well,
week.
I shall try. Try hard not to. No.
That's right. For our Canadian listeners and viewers, you know of what we speak. It's illegal to walk in the forest in Atlantic Canada on pain of $25,000 fines, which of course is perfectly normal to say that, don't have fires, don't start fires, don't, you know, do anything that could start a fire.
Yeah.
But there's
We'll just preempt that whole thing by saying just you can't go.
you can't go. That's right. I mean, in Canada, we can stop automobile accidents simply by saying you can't drive. There'll be no cars on the road and there'll be no automobile accidents.
And that ranks right up there with we know that somebody's going to kill somebody. So we're going to have a buyback of all your automobiles. Just like we're going to buy back your guns, because if we buy back all your guns, there'll be no crime.
I tell you, it's we've got the solutions. This
Yeah.
is yeah, and you know, this is the kind of place that I think that Washington should consider annexing because you've got all these things that are never going to happen. You'll have no accidents, no forest fires. Everything will be just hunky dory. You get a great piece of real estate you can pick
Yeah.
up.
Although we have to be careful. I don't think we can use the term hunky dory anymore. But
No, that probably, yeah, there'd be a lot of euphemisms we cannot use
mhm.
for. But yeah, we discussed what should we discuss today? We know
Well,
where we've been.
we know where we've been. I think we flogged that dead horse well beyond what is probably normal. And it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And
No,
in spite of our best efforts, the horse is still dead.
it is. It is dead. And we need to figure out what happens if we get to the end of the line on these discussions
Well, yeah.
between Washington and Ottawa.
What do they say that
And
there's an event horizon and it's out there, uh, maybe not too far off in the future.
Well, you know, we know that the status quo cannot continue. I think that's where we start from.
Yes, much to the chagrin of our elbows up comrades here. The status quo is not working. It's not likely to work.
No,
Uh, I don't care what version or iteration you bring up. It hasn't worked thus far. I don't see it working in the future.
no, no, we're definitely agreed on that. What we aren't agreed on, because we don't have any information, is what are the possibilities
Mhm.
at the end of the line. Um, and that's really what we're going to muse about. And really, we have no information to
No, we don't. You know,
work
and
with.
I'd like to say that we don't have any skin in the game either, but that would be perhaps a bit untrue. And whatever happens, it's going to have some affect or effect on how our lives are going to be played out.
Right.
So, yeah, but you're right. We have been for the last 7 months afraid of President Trump. You know, not the
Well,
fact we can vote for him, we can't do anything, but we are afraid of him, and we have to realize that that is just the boogeyman that's been thrown in front of us,
yes.
coupled with the we will become the 51st state. And I, I don't really think that if the U.S. sat down and thought long and hard about this, that they would want us as the 51st state.
Well, who's they? I guess you have to
Well, that's
we have to
they
parse that out.
they which is it the Republicans? Is it the Democrats? Is it both parties? Is it the general populace? I don't know.
Well, let's be critical for a minute here. We have not heard the Democrats say anything about this in with
True.
any real affirmation because they themselves don't know what they want to do within the United States. But if you were a Democrat and you said to your fellow Democrats, well, what kind of people are these Canadians? They would probably say, well, if the Canadian territory became part of the US as a state or a number of states, we would pick up a number of seats or senators because these guys are left-wing nut jobs.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm making light of this for the moment, but I mean this would be a Republican's worst nightmare if Canada was to
I,
become
I would think,
part
yeah.
of the U.S. because with the exception of Quebec, which I'm quite sure would not be part of this deal whatsoever, you've got essentially a socialist country. You've got your neck of the woods, which is very, what's the difference between the West Coast, basically, politically speaking, Washington, Oregon, California is all Democrat.
Yeah,
And what's British Columbia? Democrat. Okay, in that sense, if you were going to use the American yardstick.
yeah,
So
yeah.
then that would give you two more senators and how many districts? I don't know if it's a 51st state setup. If you look
Or
at
is it just, one state with 53 county or 13 counties, you know what I mean?
yeah, if you look at then Alberta, Saskatchewan, you're going to end up with two red states essentially, uh, with a lot of resources, just like
Mhm.
Manitoba is going to be a blue state, so you got another two. We've already talked about Quebec. I'll come to Ontario in a minute. Atlantic Canada or Maritimes or the four,
All blue, all blue.
all blue. Okay, so this would be a nightmare for Republicans. Then you've got Ontario, which would be kind of a purple place for
Yeah,
okay. So
yes.
that's if he went that direction. But the Democrats have been silent about their chances of winning additional converts to the Senate or the House. So that's out of the question for Republicans, even though the Republican crowd is talking 51st state. I haven't heard anything from Democrats. And of course, what I find is interesting is that the schmoozing that goes on between Canadian liberals and Democrats as this trade thing's going on is it's interesting. They're not getting any traction from the
Yeah,
Democrats at all about,
no,
well,
no,
we can help you with this thing, this mean orange man. Because I don't think they're really their guts are into this at all
no,
from
no.
the Democrats' perspective.
And I guess that kind of reads where I would be thinking is that, yeah, they would probably enjoy having us running around perhaps with US passports, but we would become like a Puerto Rico. And,
That's right. Which
you
means,
know,
yeah, and that I think is probably what Republicans would rather see happen as
mm,
opposed to Democrats, is if you had a Puerto Rico situation with Canada, as we know it now, minus Quebec, and then a bilateral relationship with Quebec and Washington, because Quebec is pretty well made it clear that they have no interest in supporting Confederation in particular,
mm,
and they have
yeah.
no interest in supporting a link up with the U.S. So they've got their sort of mindset there, and they
Yeah.
think that with the energy and the aluminum and other resources they can sell, they'll be okay. And then some
And
nostalgia
they
for
might be.
the
Yeah.
Europeans, I don't know, might help them there. Uh,
Yeah.
but a Commonwealth of Canada part of the U.S. probably is the best thing for Republicans if they were really serious about offering some sort of arrangement economically and politically with whatever is left of Canada. Interesting, we would have to see what the country would feel about that.
I
If I
guess, yeah, pre-production, we talked about that. And really, that's, I guess, what we're leading up to here is what's on the table. You talk about this, you thought it would be a good idea. The people of Canada are saying, no, it wouldn't be a good idea. But that was just on our country being absorbed into the American economy, into the American way of thinking. And I,
oh,
I
yeah.
don't think that was this. I don't think that was the thrust of that. I think it was just a,
Well, it's been an emotional
yeah,
discussion, not one based on any facts or figures or projections,
very true.
etc.
Yeah,
Um, One of the things we talked about was, if any of this was to be serious in a discussion, I think the the bigger party has to say to the smaller party, here's the deal, okay? Which means everything has to be on paper and on the table on what it is that we would in this Commonwealth setup, or even as a straight 51st state or any number of states, who benefits and how do you benefit? Um, there's really no offer here other than the boogeyman business.
yeah,
There is no offer on the table
yeah,
as to what exactly does a new relationship with the Americans mean to those of us who now
yeah.
live in this part of the North America, which a lot of Americans see as that big pink part on the map, and for all sorts of reasons,
Yeah.
right? Uh,
Yeah.
so it's one of those, I guess, wishful thinking um, exercises, or if people would actually say to the Americans, in this case, the current U.S. government, tell us exactly what you're offering,
Yeah.
you know, straight up. Okay. I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no.
I just wonder what our options are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, because maybe the deal would stink, and we'll have to, find alternatives, as we're being told we have to, but without any specifics at the moment. I mean, let's face it, we're no more going to be part of the European Union than you and I can jump out a window and fly. That's not going to happen. First of all, it isn't even legal for the European Union to expand outside of Europe. So this has been a non-starter, and we're being sold a bill of goods by certain political forces in this
We used to have
country.
a term called a pipe dream.
Yeah, well, I call it bullshit, but okay, fine. The so and as we're heading out of the summer doldrums, we're going to get into some serious discussions of economy and politics and the geopolitical setup in the world. Yeah, it's we need some hard sort of choices, hard fact. There's no one coming to save us, is what I'm trying to say here.
Well, we're finding that very friendly. The Europeans are very, very quick to throw us under the bus. Mexico was very, very quick to grease the skids to throw us under the bus.
Hell yeah.
Uh,
President Scheinbaum made no apologies whatsoever. Uh,
we've had the spear thrust in our ribs by China, and
Absolutely.
we have absolutely nobody backing us in our corner.
No. Now we are going in with every passing day, some new announcement is made how we're going to subsidize farmers. We're going to subsidize auto workers. We're going to subsidize miners. Like, where the hell is all this money coming from to subsidize all those industries, all those folks who work in the agriculture or work in steel
Yeah,
plant?
the blue collar jobs and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Well, in anything we make, if we can't sell it because of the tariff situation, what are we going to do? We're going to make stuff what to put in a warehouse? Like, what are we talking about here? People are going to
Well,
see
I think
this
that
is to me, this is COVID on steroids,
it
because
is.
everyone's going to go home, sell on their duffs, and get a check in the mail. But who is signing those checks? Where's that
Well,
money
actually,
coming
it's the Parliament because we haven't had one of those sitting for 7 months now.
from? Yeah,
So,
but we're already in so much debt that it's crippling. It's going to
yeah.
cripple our great grandchildren. So we're like this is the sophomoric government that we have, who says there's a crisis, there's a terrible crisis, and then the guy who's in charge buggers off on holidays. Like, you can't take this stuff seriously
Yeah.
when it comes out of the heads of the numbskulls that we apparently elected 7 months ago to run this place. We're looking down a runway in an airplane that isn't fueled up, and we're hurtling down the runway here.
Yeah, well, it is being fueled up, but it's being fueled up on a fear of a mythical creature called a boogeyman who is taking the form of the US president right now.
Yeah.
And that's really all it is. Uh, I think there's a lot of people that are drinking perhaps that brand of Kool-Aid.
I think the vast majority of Canadians are purposefully ignoring the elephant in the room. They're closing their eyes. Use
Mhm.
whatever, analogy you like.
Analogy.
It's peculiar, because no one wants to talk about, the what if here.
Mhm.
We're like, we don't know where we're going as a society, other than we're filling the country up with hundreds of thousands of migrants from third world countries who are now making up 25% of the population. And I
And
think I think there is a concerted effort to push that to about 35%, which is really the tipping point where no longer have a country. You can't have
oh, that's
you
true.
can't
Right?
have
Yeah.
35% of the population foreign born and expect to have any cohesiveness in a society.
And I think that's part and parcel. But again, another elephant in the room. When it reaches that point, a lot of these people are individuals that would not uh, be eligible for or able to obtain a visa to visit the United States or to immigrate to the United States, which goes back a little bit to what we were talking about before. If we have this 35% number sitting in Canada, I don't think that the US wants to absorb those 2 to 4 million people that are up here currently with status or supposedly have status. They're not the kind of people that the United States is looking for either.
Well, again, if you close your eyes, you don't want to watch or hear any of this stuff. Then you're deluding yourself
Mhm.
into
And it
situate.
goes, yeah,
Well,
it goes,
exactly, because let's be perfectly lucid here. The folks in Washington, and forget the political mumbo jumbo, the people who are looking at who are within the so-called deep state, okay, in the intelligence community, they see what exactly is happening right across the border in Canada and right across the border in Mexico. They
mm,
dealt with Mexico almost with military precision. Okay, they closed that sucker down. They've got the military, the border patrol. They've gone into Mexico City and said to Scheinbaum, we want these people who are running the cartels. Either you get them or we'll get them. And she says, well, you're not coming in here, but I'll give you the guys, which she's done. Now, as everybody knows, when you squeeze a balloon, it pushes the air another part of the balloon, and the argument that's being made by many in the intel community, well, that leaves our northern border. We're talking from the U.S. perspective. It's not just fentanyl. It's you've got a huge population of unknown folks because the
yeah,
Canadians have let in 4.5 million migrants who they don't have a clue who they are. Literally, we have no clue.
literally.
Okay.
Yeah,
And they're playing fast and loose with the whole Palestinian Middle East thing. And this has got to keep people up at night in Washington about, okay, the northern border is 5,000 kilometers of nothing. Okay, the Great Lakes, you got some water protecting you, but after that, it's a straight line out to where you are
yeah,
from the Lake
yeah.
Superior, and certainly anything from Ottawa right out to Maine is just woods.
Same.
So,
Yeah,
so they know that they are now having to deal with about 4 or 5 million folks that who knows why they're there. Right now, you're dealing with essentially third world migrants pretending to be asylum seekers or students or whatever it is that they've been ginning up for the last 2.5 years. Then you have all the so-called political concerns out of China. We have a huge Chinese population, which we hear nothing about compared to the East Asian community, which
mhm,
and the Palestinian community, which is on the streets all the time. But the Chinese community is nowhere to be found unless you look for
yeah,
them. Okay, they're not causing trouble on the streets. They're working, and
yeah,
they have a
yeah,
number of protections within the community, which is language and culture and family, which is very protective. And
yeah.
so, frankly speaking, the presence of the PRC in Canada probably has our intel people much more concerned than a ragtag bunch of asylum seekers dressed up as students or whatever
Very true.
that they've let in. So if we're going to project forward about where do we go in whatever relationship we're going to have with our friends to the south, these things all have to be
Addressed.
reckoned with. Okay.
And part of it boils down to the fact is, and for Canadian listeners, are you prepared to give up a bunch of your freedom and I say that loosely, freedom, where you're going to have to now go and stand in front of a U.S. consulate and provide them with your fingerprints, your criminal record, and everything else so that you will be able to visit the United States.
Well,
Even if you become,
unless you're
even
a
if
dual citizen like some of our MPs or some of our cabinet
some will
ministers,
be lucky. Obviously, the majority of Canadians won't be.
of course.
And I don't know how that would work, even if they decide that we could be like Puerto Rico. Because if you're in Puerto Rico, you can just kind of get on a plane or a boat or whatever it is and go to Miami or,
Well,
you know,
if you're a Commonwealth territory or trust territory of the United States, Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, you name them, you just get on a plane. You know,
yeah,
you're not subject to that. You have total mobility rights, and you're also protected by all aspects of the Constitution. What you don't have, what Puerto Ricans don't have, what people of the Virgin Islands don't have, you don't have representation in Congress of any value. Now that's a two-edged sword, uh,
it is.
because you then really have to be masters in your own house, even though it's not your house. You know, that's a very interesting dilemma to have. If you don't like it in Puerto Rico, you get on a plane, you go to New York, bingo, you go to work, and your status changes immediately as soon as your feet touch the mainland. But if you go back to Puerto Rico, you're a Puerto Rican with an
Yeah.
American passport. Uh, well, whether that would work in a Commonwealth setup in Canada is a good question. But again, we don't have a roadmap to any of this stuff. You know, we're just shooting the breeze here over the fence. You know,
Yeah.
we're kind of pulling stuff off the menu, and we're not even sure if we like the food. Uh,
And I guess it does boil down to the fact too, does this really mean that the end of the game is that we go down and we have now basically no tariffs and things go back almost to the way they were. And
no, the things go back in a whole other direction. You know, because now you have to also talk about, well, where's the downside here? Okay, we can talk about the upsides, you know, sort of okay, the more money, you know, better security. What's the downside to all this? Okay, so you know, will we have the same gun laws that are in play in Massachusetts or in Texas? Because we don't know.
right.
You know, will we be able to invest in things outside of Canada, which you can now because it's a loosey-goosey system? Will you be able to do that under a Commonwealth setup? Well, how will our banking system change? Because there'll be no Bank of Canada. It's going to be part of the Fed. Okay, because the Canadian dollar will disappear with a stroke of a pen.
Yeah.
Now, so your standard of living, if you happen to be middle class, you're going to end up probably in a much better situation. If you're at the bottom of the heap, that isn't going to change. You're still going to be at the bottom of the heap. Okay. What
And if you're at
happens to
the top
the
of the,
4 million or so that the current 10-year tenants in Ottawa have brought? What happens to those folks? Should we go? Because they won't have a vote in 6 to 18 months. Should we go down that route? No one's going to ask the East Indian students, you know, what do you think about a merger with the United
yeah,
States? Because none of their damn business.
yeah,
What will happen to them? Not that I care particularly, but I'm just saying you have to bear that in mind. And so do the people in our friends who would be our our fellow citizens following that kind of a setup. Will the ICE come into Toronto and start picking up all the people who should be going back to wherever they have to go back to? You know,
yeah.
this is a whole other thing that you know you have to think about, and we haven't even scratched other issues
No, no.
because we haven't we're looking at a menu in a restaurant that's blank. You know, like what would you like to have? Well, I'd like we have,
I'd like the filet mignon, but we
yeah,
don't have that.
we don't have that. Oh, well, how about
Uh,
some chicken? Oh, we don't have that. Oh,
Tony, nope.
no, don't got that. No. Yeah, so, you know, we said we're going to do a 10-minute thing. We're already at 28.
Yeah.
It's amazing because this really is like uh, 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 what's the word?
It's trying to be again a reference to our generation. Johnny Carson and the Amazing Karnak.
Yes.
We're trying to come up with an idea. We don't know what the question is, and we really don't know what the answer is, but we've got a lot of people that we see on the mainstream media now that are experts.
Yes.
And I have no idea who these experts are. I don't think they know, other than the fact that the majority of them have never met a microphone that they don't like. Uh, you
Well,
know,
and the other side of the coin, of course, is that the vast majority of the media is absolutely aghast that someone like Donald Trump would talk about the 51st state. How dare you? The arrogance, the sheer arrogance
past
of Yet there's never been any offer given. I mean, there's nothing. This is
it was I think people have said, and that is the way that President Trump negotiates. He just throws something out there.
But it's not even but there's
It's
no
not a negotiation tactic. It's
no,
just
there's no meat on the bones whatsoever.
no, no, and that's true. Yeah.
This is a country, Canada, that goes into complete apoplectic
Compulsion.
fits over a tweet, and you're thinking, oh man, we talk about a bunch of schmucks who are really not paying attention here. Because I'm saying, and we talked about, show me what's on the menu. You
Show
know,
me the money.
show me the money.
Yeah.
Then we'll have something to talk about. Right now, this bimbo crowd that I call in the Canadian media, that's all they talk about. Oh, bad man, orange man, bad. Woo, ooh, I'm all puffed out. I asked the question the other day about, okay, here's a question. What makes you Canadian? And don't start with I'm not American. Tell me what a Canadian is, and then we'll start.
And don't throw in our free healthcare system that
Oh
isn't
yeah,
free.
yeah. But you never, of course, you get nothing back from throwing that pitch out because they won't even swing at it. A baseball analogy. You brought up the other thing about Karnak. Again, we're using all these American isms to try and explain where we're coming from on this stuff,
Yes.
right? And we're not talking about what did Gordon Lightfoot sing about in some song that you know,
Or Celine Dion
or
or
no, precisely.
Diana Twain
So
or
anyway, what is intriguing about this is we're in the deep end of the pool, so to speak, and we're treading water, but we're not even sure why we're in the deep end of the pool because
and nor are we really, really sure that it is the deep end of the pool.
exactly,
Perhaps even
you know,
deeper.
the enigma of the whole thing that started off 7 months ago with that stupid dinner that the Idiot King went to down in Mar-a-Lago has opened up just such a Pandora's box here.
Yeah.
And you're going, okay, but what exactly are we talking about? And when you look at how Mexico has dealt with this as opposed to how our people have dealt with it, you wonder what is going on here. President Scheinbaum basically has said, look, we're not interested in any backdoor deals with Canada because I have no interest in going up against the Americans. In fact, I got my own problems with this guy and the Americans with the cartels. And I don't want the 82nd Airborne coming into Mexico finding these guys. So what I'll do is I'll pick them up and ship them to you. You can have them because I don't want these people in Mexico. What do? I don't know what we do. We call them
Well, first and
we have
foremost,
official name calling days.
well, that, yeah, we fall back on we're not going to be the 51st state.
Okay, fine. What are we going to be? Are
We're
we
not
going
going to be the 51st state. I
Yeah,
mean, we've
well,
plenty of
I wrote the other day that since Laurier was prime minister, we've really never had a chance to do anything come close to developing a country that was sustainable without having a relationship with our neighbors, period. Okay. Canada until after the war was sucked dry by the Brits. We were a colony. Statute of Westminster. Oh yeah,
Westminster Street. Yeah.
okay. Soon as that was all over, then the Americans came up and bought the place up for chump change. Okay. And it's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but what exactly have we done, blood, sweat, and tears, to keep this thing called Canada, I separate and viable, yet working with the only neighbor we got.
Yeah.
All this. And so when Carney says we have no relationship, he's right. They threw a hand grenade into that whole thing 10 years ago. And that's the evolution that we're faced with now,
Yeah.
where we're going, wow, for 10 years, all we did was look down our noses, and here we are. And now we can't even spite our face. Like, what are we doing?
Well, and I guess the sad part of that is that if you believe polls, and I'm not a great believer in polls because they misled us so many times, is that if there was an election tomorrow, this same crowd would be voted back in
Yeah,
with
well,
an even bigger majority than what they have now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to do the same thing over and over again and do the same thing over and over again, and we'll do the same thing over and over again. Well, that leads to nowhere. And that's why it's so frustrating when we're sitting here and we're in the restaurant, so to speak, and there's nothing on the menu. And we don't
Mm.
know what in the hell we're going to order because we don't know. And what we don't know, we don't know. That's the part of this whole thing going forward that is so frustrating because
Yeah. Yeah.
because we don't know. And we're kept in the dark and we're fed BS and we're being gaslit. Because
But the
I
thing
think
is,
I'd have a whole lot more respect for this bunch if they said, this is what we're going to do. Not the malarkey that we're getting fed at the moment. This is what we're going to do. Okay. Not spending money halfway around the world for stuff we never asked for. The craziness, the press release management of this country without a parliament, without a budget, without a coherent justice system anymore. I mean, it's just cuckoo. And
yeah,
so, like I said, there's the menu, but there's nothing on it, and we're having a conversation that makes no sense because we don't know.
but we all are dreaming about that filet de mignon. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Anyhow, yeah.
So listen,
And
you
food for
go.
thought, folks.
Yeah. Don't forget to hit the like button because we need the like button hit so we get the algorithms up there. Buy
Yeah.
us a coffee if you can. And we'll continue to pontificate. When Bob gets back, he's going to be in a Zen mood in deepest British Columbia, and he will be given. Are you taking your tinfoil hat with you?
Well, I have to dig out the manual on that one now. But, yeah. But it could be totally interesting because there is no cell coverage, there is no internet coverage, there is a marine band radio in case we
Yeah,
get.
but you got Sasquatches.
Well, that's not been a proven fact yet.
Okay, but should you meet up with it, they, them, let us know what they think about our dilemma.
Well, their answer probably would be is just forget you saw me because I don't want to be dragged into this.
Well, on that note, I'm going to let you go.
hit, hit the unrecord button.
I'm going to do that. You have a great time, and I'll see you next week.
Yes, and we may even have a fish story or two to tell.
Okay.